Everybody's talking at me.
Chuck Wilder here, and let's go to my guest, David A. Bego. He is the author of Devil at My Doorstep, and this book stems from his actual first-hand experience while waging war with Andy Stern and the SEIU from the late 2006, and it's still going on. He's been fighting back against one of the most powerful unions in existence today. He's lived the experience, he's walked the talk, and he's still under attack from Stern and his union thugs. Hey, David, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great, Chuck. Great to be back with you again.
You know, this latest blog you have, Occupy Wall Street is no Tea Party. Let me give you an interesting statistics here, okay? ABC, CBS, and NBC has cheered for the Occupy Wall Street protest 33 times, okay, on the first 11 days of October. How great it is and all this full coverage. In all of the year 2009, they had 13 total stories of the Tea Party protest. Does that shock you? Of course not.
No, not at all. I mean, it's apparent where their loyalties lie, and it's not with the conservative movement. It's it's a liberal movement, and on top of that, whether they want to admit it or not, the mass media, mainstream media, I guess, is really behind the unions, and in fact, I think in a lot of cases they're afraid of the unions. They're intimidated by them because they know if they don't support them, the unions will go after their advertisers, and that's going to cause them problems financially.
You know, in all these protests, whether it's in Wisconsin or California or these Wall Street protests, when you see those fancy signs, I call them, all right, ready print, beautiful signs already made up, you know that's the union. Or George Soros or MoveOn.org or one of those, because, the handmade ones, I personally pay more attention to the handmade signs.
Well, yeah, number one, they've got more originality to them. I mean, people are actually thinking for themselves. But, no, you're exactly right. And we experienced the same thing here in Indianapolis when the SEIU was doing rallies and that against us. And, I view all this from a different perspective. I've seen it all.
Yeah.
Just on a different scale. They're doing this nationally. They did it against me here in several cities in the Midwest. But you look at it and say, it's the same program, it's the same script. It's just a different time and a different thing that they're talking about.
Well, the union admitted they were behind the Occupy Wall Street in Chicago, the teachers union.
Oh yeah, and absolutely they are all over the place. Even in fact, in my blog, Occupy Wall Street is no Tea Party. It was kind of interesting that Mary Kay Henry, who is the president of the SEIU, wrote an article about it, and it kind of went out of her way to try and say that the SEIU wasn't involved. And we know they are. We've seen them on some of the film clips, and since then, I know you know who Andrew Breitbart is.
Yes. Oh, yes.
I was talking to him earlier today. And I guess he was out in L.A. for the Occupy L.A., and he said he had SEIU people following him, trying to intimidate him. I mean, it's part of their tactics. It's part of, their campaigns that they run against people and businesses to intimidate them and get them to cave in.
I think he got on their number one radar blip whenever he did the Acorn thing.
Oh yeah, and he continues to go after him, and rightfully so, because all they try to do to people that disagree with them or don't do what they want them to do is try to intimidate them, and it's kind of like, honestly, what our president's trying to do with the Republicans on TV at night when you listen to him say, "You better pass my job bill, if not, the American people are going to hold you accountable," and those type of statements. It's all the same type of rhetoric, Chuck, that I heard from the unions here in Indianapolis, the SEIU, and Cincinnati and Columbus, Ohio, and St. Louis and Pittsburgh when they were coming after my company.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something, David. I keep mentioning this point. And I wish it would soak in between the ears of each and every one of these protesters, that whenever Pelosi and Obama get up and they support your cause, pardon me, boy, it's, let me see, Sunlight Foundation Influence Project did a report that shows that President Barack Obama has received more money from Wall Street than any other politician over the past 20 years. And yet, they went up north and said, let's hit all the CEOs' houses, went right by George Soros's. They didn't even, stop and look at the lawn because they had their marching orders, and this is a house you leave alone.
Well, absolutely. They're very good at this stuff, and people don't understand it, and I have to give them credit. They're very well organized.
Yeah.
They're tactically, they do a good job. They're innovative when it comes to different things, and they know who they're going after. It's kind of like, you remember the story I told you about back in 2007 when they were in my neighborhood on Halloween.
You know what? I was just getting ready to say, Halloween right around the corner, and tell them that story. Talk about organized.
Well, that's right. They were in my neighborhood, and here's the thing interesting about this. I don't think I've mentioned this to you before. Excuse me. I have an unlisted address, so they had to go to great lengths to find out where I lived. Okay. And on Halloween of 2007, they had little kids in our neighborhood, cute little kids, which to me this is just atrocious to use kids to do your bidding. But anyway, they would go up to all the houses and, of course, ring the doorbell and get candy. And then as soon as they got the candy, they would hand our neighbors these flyers that said House of Horrors across the top. Every night, buildings cleaned by EMS, people were abused and intimidated. Mm-hmm. And in the streets, and I live in
and we're talking about a janitorial service for those who haven't heard this. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then in the streets, they had Union thugs driving up down the streets in cars. Our neighbors were terrified. But it was obvious. It was very obvious. They knew two houses they really wanted to hit in that neighborhood. One was mine, because when they came to my door, they made sure they had 2 or 3 Union cars sitting out in the street across from my house. Mm-hmm. And then one of our customers lives in the neighborhood, and they did the same thing to him and his wife.
Gestapo in America, I'm telling you. Yeah, when I read that in your book and that story, I mean, it's, in fact, just let me tell right now, listener, you need to read The Devil at My Doorstep. It's almost like fiction, but unfortunately, it isn't. It's the absolute truth. And the stuff that this union does, I mean, you hear about, Andy Stern, he visits the White House, all these times more than anybody else. There's a reason for that because, I'm not, you can't compare them to the Gestapo. I mean, you can't say, they are the Gestapo, but boy, they sure sound like it and act like it, don't they?
Well, they do, and the truth is, and I had lunch with a lady this afternoon that had just read my book, and she's taken back by what's going on, mm-hmm. and I think she's going to become one of my biggest supporters here in Indianapolis. But she says, I just can't believe what these people are doing. And I said, you have to understand something. These people have nothing to sell. There's a reason that unionized labor membership stands at 13% or a little bit less nationwide and less than 7% of the private sector, and it's because they have nothing to sell. So their alternative is to intimidate and force people into unionism and use politics and dirty politicians to pass laws and change regulations to help them do it. And that's what this is all about. And most of the American people don't understand that.
And there's another a perfect example that's happening right now is Gibson Guitar. Mm-hmm. I had the people on talking about that when it first broke out. And Gibson Guitar is not the only guitar company in the state of Tennessee that's importing special wood from India. And they say, if it was put together in India, then that's okay. But if you just ship it here and Gibson puts it together, forget about those 50 jobs. Get rid of those people. But the whole thing is, out of, I think there's 8 companies, guitar companies, David, mm-hmm. Gibson CEO was the only one that contributed to the Republicans. Mm-hmm. So they were targeted.
Well, not only that, and I've heard this, and I can't substantiate it, and I'm going to say that up front.
All right.
But
Let's suppose once upon a time, go ahead, now we've established, this may be a fairy tale. Okay, once upon a time.
But I've heard that many of Gibson's competitors are unionized, and Gibson is not. And that may be another reason they were targeted, which is also very interesting.
All this stuff going on, with all the green policies, and if you contribute to my campaign, you get $535 million. Or if you're GE, you get $1 billion. I mean, the corruption, well, it's the most transparent administration in the history of the world. Let me ask you this, because I know that you just went to, I think it was like three different Tea Party events. Did you happen to see what Ann Coulter, her quote, talking about this is what a mob looks like?
No, I didn't see that.
Let me give this to you, because this is great. I've quoted this 1,000,000 times so far. She says, Ann Coulter, I am not the first to note the vast differences between the Wall Street protesters and the Tea Parties. To name 3, the Tea Partiers have jobs, showers, and a point.
I love it.
That is good, isn't it?
I love it. I really do.
And when I was reading your blog, I'm thinking, and now they want to close down the park in New York, and because they say, hey, we got to get in there and clean it up, and then let them come back in there, but it is just filthy. You didn't experience that with the 3 recent Tea Party events you just went to, did you? Or did you?
These people, and I kind of mentioned this in my blog too. The difference is between the do's and the don'ts. The do's are the Tea Partiers who do go out and have jobs and do the right thing and care about America. The don'ts are the ones that, either don't have jobs or don't care about America and don't want to do the right thing. And when I was at these Tea Parties, these people are good people. They're concerned about the future of our great country and, of course, their children and grandchildren. And, all they're trying to do is preserve and bring back what made us great.
Well, in your blog, you say the Tea Party, whenever they get together, their attitude was not what's in it for me, but rather what is best to preserve the democracy and the republic. Because you definitely see, if you just read all their signs, what's in it for me,
Mm-hmm.
Like one of their demands, we want a income, a fixed income, whether you work or not.
Well, that's right. And that's why I say between the do's and the don'ts. I mean, that's simplifying, but that's really the way it is. And the other thing is these protesters, a lot of them have said, well, we need to forgive all debt, mortgages and college tuition and all that kind of stuff. It's like, okay, I am entitled to this because you need to give it to me. And quite honestly, this is coming from a lot of these unions like the SEIU. They know how to go out and recruit these type of people that are easily swayed, easily convinced that everybody's against them and they deserve all this stuff. And
I had a guest on that said something about Craigslist, that the union was paying people $560 or $650 a week to go out and do these protests.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've heard that when, of course, when the big protests were going on in Wisconsin, and we heard some of it here in Indianapolis when they were marching on the State House when Governor Daniels was trying to get some of the changes in the collective bargaining through. And again, you have to take your hats off to
organizing. Yes,
they're very good at it, but you have to sit back and say, I'm not going to be naive. I have to look through what they're doing and understand this has nothing to do with the people, because Chuck, quite honestly, they could care less about the people or the employees. It's all about big labor bosses and continuing their way of life and dirty politicians who want to get reelected.
We've got about a minute here before we go into our next break. But I noticed that you were with pretty pretty good, impressive group of people there. And you were talking about in the tea parties. You said I met and listened to great Americans, and you give some of them there. Do you have the list with you there?
Yeah, there was General Paul Vallely for Stand Up America. He used to be on Fox all the time. He was one of their people they use for information on Afghanistan and places like that. And Thomas and Deneen Borelli. Deneen, I know, still appears on Fox.
Well, Deneen is a frequent guest on this show, too. She's great. National Center for Public Policy, Project 21.
Oh, and she was a wonderful speaker, too.
She is, yes.
And, and then, of course, the people that helped or put it on, Rick Berry and Rick Roos out of the Madison, Louisville area, and Les Neiman, who does talk show work down there also. And
that's the Sons and Daughters of Liberty, right?
Right, the Sons and Daughters of Liberty.
And I'll tell you what, we are not going to forget the others either, but we've got to take this break, and we're going to get right back here in just a moment with David Bego. You got to read his book. It's The Devil at My Doorstep. And you can go to thedevilatmydoorstep.com. It's not going to, take 5 months to get through it. No, it's one of those page-turner type books. It almost sounds like fiction, I'm telling you. All right, David Bego, he'll be back in just a moment. My guest, David A. Bego, author, Devil at My Doorstep. And if you go to that website, thedevilatmydoorstep.com, you can also sign up there. There's a place where you can receive his blog daily or whenever he puts it out. Now, David, back to these Tea Party groups, some great people that you were talking about. You also had some talk show hosts and radio people there. We'll see, we left off Les Neiman, is that his name?
Yeah, Les is quite a character. He's had a show in Louisville for quite a time. He's off the air right now, but I understand he's negotiating a new contract to be back on, and he does a good job. And then you see some of the others. Jim Coyle was a radio personality down in that area, and Randy Fry was a state senator who got up and did a magnificent job talking about this country and patriotism and what we need to do. And then the last few people I mentioned are actually I was in Palm Beach County, Florida, speaking, and Anita Carbone, this lady works her rear end off. She's actually running the speaking engagements for both the Tea Party and the Republican Club.
Oh, okay. Busy.
Oh, yeah, and she was great, and Marie Davis, who was the...
Just tell her I said do it in stereo, and you can handle both of them. One out of the left and one out of the right. Of course, they're going to fight who comes out of the right, so yes.
That's right. And then there was Brian Mudd and Joe Malkin, who are radio personalities. They actually interviewed me on the radio down there while I was down there.
WJNO, right. And by the way, I know Marie Davis, want to mention that she is a Republican club president. She also attends those tea parties. See, these are people that are getting off their you-know-what and doing it, and to organize these things, it takes a while. And there should be a booklet. To tell you the truth, maybe you should write a booklet, David, how to form a tea party. Actually, I think there is a book out called that, but now that my mind is kicked back into gear, I think I had them on. But anyway, maybe we need another one. How to form a tea party and get it going. And that's what we need because, as we have pointed out in the last 25 minutes, this Occupy Wall Street, when you got the left behind it, they do know how to organize. And when you've got the union, they know how to organize because their livelihood depends upon it. Look at the teachers union. Boy, I mean, my goodness. But anyway, hey, David, I certainly appreciate your visit today. And if they go to thedevilatmydoorstep.com, they can sign up for your blog, right?
Yes, they can, or they can go directly to the blog, which is devilatmydoorstep.wordpress.com. And I think I mentioned this to you before, but hopefully by the end of the year, we're going to have a new book out, The Devil at Our Doorstep. And we're going to talk about some of these political issues and that we talked about today, and what's going on with the national right to work.
Hey, listen, when you do the cover of the book, just have the devil at my doorstep on there and cross out the my, with the red line, and have our